Hey there, lady. My name is Molly Conley, and I'm devoted to helping ambitious women overcome sabotaging behaviors so they can reinvent their love lives. Why? Because I've been there. I'm a former college athlete who filed for divorce 3 years into marriage, swam in the online dating pool in my late 30s, and now I'm married to the man of my spreadsheet dreams who I met 4 months before the world shut down. As a dating and relationship coach, my goal is to help you take my lessons and turn them into your successes. Each week, I'll bring you love life insights and savvy guests where you will receive the courage to release dating patterns, discover your sabotaging behaviors, and ways to choose yourself first so you can build a foundation for a healthy relationship with yourself and a partner. Hey, ladies, welcome back to the podcast. I have someone very special with me today. My husband, Brad, sitting
Hello.
with me on the couch. Might be making a few series of this. I had asked, actually surveyed my Instagram followers if they would like a few different topics and maybe possibly some guests on the podcast. And one of them was having men come on and have different point of views on certain topics. But today we're going to be doing an intro for Brad, as well as more or less how we met and maybe run into our first date, or maybe we'll save that for another time. Okay, so just to give you guys some background, I had been, gosh, I don't remember what year was that. It was 2019, and right before going into fall, I had just finished or just tried to date someone I had met off Bumble, and it did not go well. I was not happy with the lack of communication. Wasn't taking action on the things that he said he would like to have a date, and then wouldn't bother. So I went through this phase where I just deleted all the apps again. And in my head, I knew that if I really was wanting something serious, I was going to have to go back onto a different platform than just, Bumble or Tinder or any of those. So I went on to Match, and I had been on Match a few times. But on a Tuesday night, I signed up for 3 months of, you know, online dating with Match and created my profile. And within an hour, I had this message from this guy named Brad.
So yeah, at that point, I'd been on Match for several years, probably the previous 3 to 4 years, and Bumble too, doing that. No real success. Never passed a second date. Mostly just a good handful of first dates, but not even a lot of those. But with Match and even Bumble and those, I was to the point. I remember then, looking those in the morning, noon, at night, like checking it several times a day to see who was new because I could pick out the people that had just joined, or maybe they were on there before I had seen them and then they were gone for a while and they were back. So I always noticed, people that came back. And so that Tuesday, I had noticed Molly was back, and I had actually remembered her because I had messaged her not once but twice before, 1 to 2 years previous, and I remembered her face, and I remember going in and I read her profile, and I remember thinking, well, this is definitely different than what it said before, and I
It's
read it all
called growth.
I read it all the way through a couple times, and which was rare because a lot of times you don't get past the first few sentences. But I read her profile, and was really interested. And I mean, to this day, I can't really tell you what it said, but I remember the feeling I had at the time, thinking, okay, I know that I've reached out to her before with no response, but like if I'm reading this, if I don't reach out again, like why am I even on here? I mean, I remember having that thought, like if I don't try this again, after reading what I just read, what am I even doing? What's the point? So I just sent her a message, and I don't remember exactly what I said,
I do.
but I know you do. So why don't you say what I said?
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell people I had this rule
Yes.
because some people like to be on Bumble because women get to make the first call and they're the ones that get to, swipe. On Match, it is a free for all. It doesn't matter. If you're like, I only want men between this age, I would get men that were like 18 years old and 81 years old messaging me, and I'd be like, I'm gonna lose my mind. Um, but with that said, I would tell myself like I would only want to try to talk to maybe 2 to 3 people max in the messages at a time on purpose so that I could really focus and see if this person would be worth my time. And sadly, Brad would always like not be within that range of contacting me. Um, but it was you and one other person that contacted me right away. But the other person, I was just like annoyed with them right away. Just not even gonna bother. Just so annoying. But you were like, "Oh, I love your smile." And I was like, "That's hilarious because I don't like my smile at all." But it was so sweet of you to say, and I knew what picture you were talking about. The one with me in the alpacas and the dress.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we started talking and you were busy with work and I didn't know you traveled for work and I asked you out on a date on Thursday and you're out of town. And so we decided to meet on Friday.
Yes.
And
And I literally remember where I was at walking down the hall at work when I read your message about asking me out. I remember that
what about it?
specifically. Just remember just remember that moment.
You're like, "What is she doing asking me on a date?"
No, it was very exciting. It was kinda 'cause you had the feeling right away, like, at least had potential, whereas a lot of other ones most other ones, you know, you're like,
Well
"Well, we might as well go out or something,"
well,
but
and just so people understand this, Brad and I, back in the day, before we met each other, I got married in 2008. I got divorced in 2011. I had 2 long-term relationships that were about 2 to 2.5 years after that, and then I was single for a good duration of time where I tried to date again, and so we already had this knowledge of, like, who was really going to work for us. I had this knowledge of who was really gonna work for me as I continued to do my own inner work, as well as, see what type of men were out there. And to be honest, it took a while to figure all that out. But when you start figuring it out, it's easier to be like, I'm not going to go on a date just to waste my time. I'm not going to go out on a date when I could be hanging out with my friends, or I want to sleep in and I don't want to bother to go out late at night. So go ahead. What were you going to say?
well, yes, and you alluded to it. I got married in 2007, divorced in 2014. And like I said, I was on the dating apps. Didn't have any serious relationships really, through those or during that time.
I thought you had one
But there was one toward the end that,
before me.
yes, and it was kind of a long distance, semi relationship, but it definitely, that relationship definitely helped me get ready to like be in a real relationship again. I guess I didn't really know what I needed, and then I kind of found it. I was like, okay, it's supposed to be like this, but that really wasn't a long-term possibility. It was kind of long distance and that type of thing, but it kind of put me in a different place. I think that helped me a lot.
What do you mean by different place?
It shifted my mindset about dating and really I was able to work like you mentioned, working on yourself. It was kind of like it was kind of eye-opening for me. Um, you know, that it helped me work on myself a little bit.
I gotcha.
Um, and just little habits I had that um I was just started thinking about, and just I don't know, it's put me in a better place to where I thought like, okay, I think I thought maybe I could be in a long term relationship before, but then I was like, okay, now I actually feel like I can. I probably wasn't ready, and then I was, but um,
That's a good
so yeah,
indication right there because, like, I feel the same way. Like, as soon as I got done with my divorce, I was just like, "Oh, I'm totally ready for another relationship," but I
yeah, not
didn't
me.
process anything. I didn't process any shit. I was just like, "Oh, he was an asshole. He did this and that. Like, I deserve better." And then I would date people that I was like, "I can't believe I dated them," like, eons later. Um, but let's talk about our first date.
Okay,
So, um, well, hold on. Let's go back to when I asked you to meet up
yeah,
for dinner or meet up for
no,
drinks on Thursday and you were out of town.
yes.
So go from there.
So well, yeah, I think you just asked if we could meet on Friday, and I said absolutely, and I let you pick the place, I believe.
Yes, I was very adamant about picking the place. I just want to say that to women. Like, a lot of women might not, I don't know, but I had a lot of friends that when they were trying to date, like we would always be pretty cautious. We would always have a good friend or two that we would say, "I'm at my date. I'm at this location. Here's a." Sadly, we'd have a picture, a first name of the guy, so that if something happened, which that does happen to women, ready to go. And so I only had one friend that I would really do this with quite often, and they were like, "He's such a great guy." Because I screenshot your entire profile and sent it to them, which was awesome. So, anyways, we picked a place called Red Lion Lounge in Blackstone in Omaha, Nebraska, and it was a cute little, what I would like to say, like almost like a jazz bar,
Without the jazz.
without the jazz, which is sad
Yes,
because
kind
it
of
could be.
underground, a little retro looking,
Yeah.
pretty dark.
Yeah, so actually,
Um,
if you, yeah, really dark at the when we went in there, it was still daylight, right?
yeah, I suppose so. I
Yeah.
suppose so. So yes, she had asked me out for a drink, and we were meeting at 6, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
So I was thinking,
On
well,
Friday.
on a Friday, on a weekend. So I was like, well, I thought the odds of it turning into dinner were probably pretty good. I'm fairly confident it'd still be fairly low key. There's places to eat near there in Midtown. So I didn't really have much dinner. I didn't really have any dinner. I kind of had an afternoon snack, and
That was still when you were
that was
intermittent fasting too, wasn't it?
true. Yes. So I was only eating between noon and 8 at that point anyway. Um, but yeah, I got there first and sat
Yeah.
down.
No, you weren't.
Wasn't sitting.
No, you were standing because I remember walking in and seeing you and being like, "Oh my god." And
I might have stood up when you got in there.
just a lot of people don't know this about me is that I'm not physically attracted to very, very many people at all. Like maybe one or two celebrities. Maybe I'm like, "Oh, they're cute." If they'd ask me out on a date, I'd be like, "That'd be interesting." But like men in general, back in my 20s, be like, "Oh, they're kind of cute. Oh my gosh, this is great." But like very rarely I'm like, "Holy shit, he is handsome." And I saw you, you didn't even look at me yet, and I was like, "Oh, I'm screwed. Like this guy is gorgeous. I've already read your profile. I'm like, hands down handsome." And we had already talked on the phone too, and I
Yeah.
liked your voice. And I was like, this is going to be so hard if he ends up like being a weirdo because I'm so attracted to him. So yeah, I remember looking at you and having to immediately drop my gaze to my feet and be like, walk down the stairs. Focus on walking down the stairs. And so, sorry, I'm getting giddy talking about our first date again because it was so fun, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Up in
Yeah, I remember. We both remember it very well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we went to go get drinks at the bar.
Oh
Quick
yeah.
introduction. Got up to go get drinks at the bar, and I ordered a Jameson, and I believe you got a Moscow Mule,
Yeah.
probably.
Do you remember anything else from that moment?
Yes, that's what I'm going to talk about.
Ooh.
So I offered to pay for the drinks, and you would not let me.
No.
And I thought, okay, well that's fair. That's nice because I've had plenty of times where the other person doesn't ever offer to pay for anything.
Yeah, which I think is a bunch of bullshit. But for me, like, I think that if you're going to meet someone on the first date, you pay for your own 100%
I agree.
because it's only fair. When you start getting into a relationship, that's when, one person can pay for one time, another person can pay the next time. Just because to me, like a man doesn't have to pay for everything and a woman shouldn't have to, you know, do all the service things. Like men don't always have to make the money and women don't always have to do like the service household stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
So
and yes, it does. It only makes sense. It does when you really break it down about dating. It really only makes sense to split the bill or pay for your own stuff or whatever you want to do. And throughout our entire date, time dating, that's what we did. We split stuff, or you bought once, I bought the next. We were pretty even. We weren't, I was not paying for everything, and that, I mean, I did appreciate that because it only made sense. You had a nice paying job, a real job. There's no reason for the guy to be paying for everything. It's definitely something I never understood because like I said, I was on dates where they just expected it, and that's kind of a turnoff. So
yeah.
anyway,
So from there, what's hilarious is I'm going to back up. When I got off of work, I just, got ready. I made myself a decent sized dinner. And we ended up having 4 drinks at, was it 3 or 4?
Oh, it was at least 4.
Okay, I'm gonna say it's
4,
4.
yeah.
And then we decided we should leave, and you said you were hungry, and I was like, "Oh, I guess I could eat an appetizer."
It was a few hours. It was over a few hours
Yeah.
because yeah, it was past 9, 9:30 when we left, I
Oh.
think. Because by the time we got to where we were going next.
Oh, yeah, so we walked down the street to a place called Night Owl, and,
Guess we're naming
well,
them.
shit happened. Um, but with that said, like, loved that place. I really was thinking I wanted the deep fried Oreos, and we didn't get them. We decided to get the hummus.
Do you wanna say what happened on the way to on the walk, the 2-block walk down there?
Oh, sweetheart, why don't you just go ahead?
Well, so we were just walking a few blocks away. We decided we'd go to that place, the Night Owl, and we're walking and ended up holding hands. And we walked by this donut shop, and I kind of looked at him like, "Oh, donuts are my kryptonite." And she literally stopped walking, and like I kind of kept going a few steps, and like I turned around, and she was like, "Me too. I love
Oh.
donuts." Something I honestly don't remember the exact thing you said, but I remember you stopped in your tracks, and
I
we're
love
like, "Oh my
donuts.
god!" You're having like a cosmic moment. So that was pretty funny.
That was really funny.
So yes, then we went on to the bar and ordered some food.
We ordered hummus.
Yes, we ordered the hummus appetizer,
And,
which was very good, honestly.
it was good. It was really loud in there that night,
Mhm.
and we couldn't really hear each other, and so I was like, "Let's go to the karaoke bar instead and not do karaoke and just sit up at the bar."
'Cause you knew the bartender.
Because I had just met the bartender because he became really good friends with my friend. And so anyways, we went up there, and he completely approved of you, and that was hilarious.
Had some more drinks.
We had some more drinks. And just to be honest, like, that's what it was like to go out and date
Sure.
at the time for sure. And where we were at, like, that was all that you really
So
could
I had, like,
do.
5 or 6 Jamesons for dinner.
You did? Total? I don't remember.
Yes.
But the funny thing was is we were, what you wanna say?
Well, I Ubered down there,
Yeah, that's
knowing I would probably drink, and I'm like, I wanted to look responsible, and not drink and drive, so I took an Uber.
yeah, so we're not done with the other
I
part,
know.
but so we're at the karaoke bar. I don't remember what it's called. No,
Mm, I don't know. I
retro.
forgot. It starts with an R or something, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so we get to know each other a little bit more, and I end up asking Brad a few questions. I'm gonna sadly embarrass you though. Okay. And I'm like, I'm having a great time. You're having a great time too. And I was like, would you want to go on a date tomorrow night? And your response was, sure, all I'm going to be doing is hanging out with my cats. And I couldn't help but laugh so because your face was so serious.
I thought it was funny.
It was funny. Obviously, it's still funny.
Yeah.
But
It's what I would do most nights.
Well, you would
Hang out with my cats.
You worked a lot.
Watch movies, yes, and work.
Yeah. So, gosh, I think it was like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
It wasn't quite 2, but it was late. I think maybe closer to 1, yeah.
Yeah.
It was late.
But, like,
Enough.
in my head, I was like, I really like him enough to ask him on a second date after the first date. Normally, I would have given myself some time to think about accepting another date. And we got all excited. I don't remember if we already had made plans, like what we were gonna do.
I don't think so.
It was football season. I didn't know if we were gonna watch football because it was November.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I honestly don't remember if we did make a solid plan. But it didn't matter.
No, it didn't. So before we get to that, we end up Brad ends up walking me to the parking lot where I had my car parked. I'm all excited. I'm like, the first date went so well. I wonder if I'm gonna get a kiss. And I didn't get a kiss because someone was super focused on his phone, looking for the Uber, like just waiting for this person to
It's
arrive.
not why he didn't get a kiss. I just was gonna wait.
Which is fine. But I was just so confused. But I also have dated people that have had drinking problems in the past, and I was like, I can't believe
Oh yeah.
that he Ubered here because that means he's got a drinking problem when you are 100%
Yeah,
a responsible
that
person.
wouldn't have crossed my mind that you were thinking that either. I'm like, I thought I was being responsible. Like, hey, that's good.
So this is one of those moments where it's like you have to catch your triggers, like those inner thoughts of being like, how true is that? Knowing now, like, oh, I thought Brad might have a drinking problem, which we just had a really high drink tolerance back then,
Mhm.
to be honest. And at the same time, you were being responsible. You did have a car. You were able to
Yes.
drive all
I
those
had a
things.
license.
Yep, you had a
I had a
license,
car.
no DUIs. So it's one of those where I had to challenge my previous experiences to my current situation and which truth was I looking through? My past truths, or am I looking through the truth that I also was unknown of like having to explore this area with you because it was just a first date? Now knowing that you are responsible, like after the first few dates, I already knew that you were a responsible person.
Yeah.
But so yeah, we go our separate ways. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh man, I'm hungover again. Alcohol and I are not friends very often. And so I was just like, I'm going to wait this out. And around noon, I'll order Jimmy John's and I will be fine by like 2 or 3 because my hangovers do like completely last a full day. And lo and behold, I get this text message from you and your turn.
I probably said good morning, and I said, I think we exchanged a few text messages, and I was like, "How are you feeling this morning?"
Yeah, and I was like,
And
definitely
yeah,
hungover.
you said hungover, and I'm like, I'm not hungover, but I'm not feeling well, and I don't remember exactly how it went.
Oh,
Um,
you told me you were like,
but
I don't think this is a hangover.
yeah, I was sure. I mean, I knew I wasn't hungover. I mean, I might have been a little hungover, but there was more. It was more than that. I was feeling pretty bad, and it was seemed to be getting worse. And then finally, I think you kind of said, "Yeah, you were
Well, but
pretty sick too."
I always get nauseous. So for
Yeah,
me, that's my thing. I throw up every time I get too drunk. So for me, I thought that was the direction of me just being in a hangover, but really Brad was sick too.
yeah, and
And
I knew it was food poisoning.
yeah, so we had food poisoning from our first date, was pretty epic.
Yeah,
Because that didn't allow us to go on our second date. So we rescheduled for Sunday. We were still sick on
yeah,
Sunday that we couldn't do our date on Sunday, so we tried for Monday, couldn't do it on Monday. Like, I don't know how I went to work on Monday, but I still went because I was like, "Well."
yeah. Sunday afternoon, I went down to work for a little while, and came back and had to get right back into bed. It
Ugh.
was a yeah, pretty bad weekend.
Yeah, and I've had food poisoning before, and so I was just completely in shock that we got it from there
Yes,
because it was hummus. I'm like, "I've had food poisoning, sadly, from chicken, and that's, like, the worst I've ever had."
yeah,
So,
that
yeah.
was pretty bad. It was not fun.
No, no, it wasn't. But overall, like, from there, I'm even
we
thinking
s-
about
we
it
set
as
up our next date,
we set up our
and
next
that
date
was
for the
football
yeah, that's right. We went and watched
at
football
your favorite bar.
at my favorite bar at the time was called Cunningham's. It's like an Irish bar, that has tons of TVs
Yeah.
and really good bar food. Um, and then we went out for ramen, and we're actually as we're
Mhm.
recording this tonight, we're making ramen for dinner tonight.
That's
Brad is a
coincidence.
fantastic cook, in my opinion, for certain things.
Sure.
So we're making chicken ramen tonight.
Yeah.
So yeah, where did we went to Ika in Benson
Mhm.
and had ramen there,
That was
which was
good.
delicious. It was my first time actually having um, ramen.
Oh,
I'm sorry I didn't tell you that. What else did we
I
have? We
probably
had
did.
what was the
We had poke.
appetizer?
We tried a few different things, maybe some dumplings. I know we had poke
Mm,
and then split the poke, split a ramen.
yep. Did we split
Who
ramen?
Oh, maybe not. Maybe we
No,
might have
because
got
you
it
like
wrong.
spicy and I
That's
don't.
true.
So, but
And
from
then
there, then we walked further down into Benson and went to a place called Krug, which is also a really fun bar that's right across the street from a music venue called The Waiting Room. And surprisingly, they weren't super busy.
yeah, they were not, yeah.
I was crazy on a Saturday
Saturday night,
night.
yeah.
So yeah, we had a few drinks there and finished the night out. So gosh, I think a week later, I ended up meeting your
Over
parents.
Thanksgiving break or
Yeah,
whatever around that time.
right around Thanksgiving, I met Brad's parents, your older sister and her husband, and then I met your friends because they
2
were
of my
all in
best friends,
town.
yeah. My best friends all live other places, different states, and they were in town to
Mhm.
visit. So I said, "Well, that doesn't happen very often." And that's one
No.
of the reasons I was like, it was kind of a coincidence. They were all here and you were around, and so I wanted you you to meet them. So
Yeah, and like
it worked
sometimes,
out.
yeah, and their girlfriends or
Yeah.
whatnot too, and so a few extra people that you didn't know were gonna stop by.
Yeah.
Um, and then the next week, hadn't been a month yet, you met my mom. My dad was out of town.
Yeah.
You had also met one of my friends at the time. We
Oh
had
yeah.
gone to no, we went for
Lunch
lunch.
downtown.
Lunch downtown. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the next weekend, oh no. Sorry, this is crazy. I've only wanted to go on the first date, but it's just showing how we
Oh yeah.
literally
Getting free material here.
we just had this
Bonus.
great communication and desire to still see each other that wasn't like forced. I didn't feel like I ever had to ask you to communicate with me. Like
Yeah.
I loved it when I would get like a good morning text or a good night text, and a lot of people don't understand like little things like that add up over time. And even when you travel now, we still do that. And that was right when
Yeah.
Bitmojis came out. And
Yeah.
I got Brad onto Bitmojis. And so
Totally.
we still do that. And it's funny because I just like how unique they are. Like sometimes we get the same ones back and forth, but you'll find something completely different, like cereal bowl, good morning, you know.
Well, sorry, I just had this thought. We talked about our first date. We kind of glossed over the 3 hours we were sitting there talking.
Oh, yeah. What?
Which, well, no, I just wanted to say that it was like continuous conversation
Oh,
with
yeah.
no awkward pauses, gaps. You had your list of questions, but it led into a lot of.
Shh, there was no list.
Yeah, you said there was a list, and
In
I had
my
mine too.
head.
I had mine too, but they just went right into each other, and we bounced off each other, and just kept talking and talking, and that's why that's why we sat there so long. I had four drinks, and we're
Oh,
there,
yeah.
for like at least 3 hours, because it was just like super easy. I mean, definitely the easiest first date I've had. I assume you too.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, what's so funny is that in your profile, you're like, "I'm a conversationalist and I have witty humor," and I was like, "I'll be the judge of if you have can have a conversation," because I'm not meaning that in a bad way, but,
I
like,
think I also said with the right person, or to some
oh, yeah,
effect of
okay.
like, I'm a good conversationalist when
I don't remember,
I
but
don't know.
if
It
you want
comes
me
to
to, I
me,
can go
but
back into my screenshots. I have them somewhere.
yeah.
Um, but it's one of those where as I'm an introverted person usually, except for when I'm around the right people and get comfortable, like I can be more extroverted. And to prepare myself on dates, like sometimes I would rehearse what I want to talk about. I would be like, this is the conversations I want to be having. If I'm not having these types of conversations, then I know that I'm like holding back because something else is coming up or the conversation is just not going in a direction where it's really authentic and being authentic is really important because what's the point of being fake on the first date because you're not going to get the same results by 5 months down the road. um but yeah, our conversations were great. I think losing track of time,
Mhm.
I mean, I've had dates where I've lost track of time, but lost track of time. My face hurts so much, like my cheeks from laughing, and having the desire to see that person immediately and not waiting for you to ask. I was
Right.
like, fuck it. I'm going to ask because this is what I want. If you don't want it, then I will know, and that's fine. I'd be
And,
disappointed.
and I would have asked too by the end of the night for sure.
I don't know. You were like thinking about your cats. I'm sorry, I'm joking. But with that said, it was just I still like your birthday. I got to meet your coworkers on a random Wednesday night happy hour, and one of
Oh
them
yeah.
one of them asked us how long we had been dating. Do you remember what you said?
I think I lied.
You did lie. We'd only
A
been
few weeks
no,
or not.
you said like 2 months.
Oh.
And they're like, "That makes a lot of
And it was like,
sense."
yeah, like 2 weeks.
It had been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What I loved is that the ladies that were from your previous company
Yeah.
were immediately like, "Hey, let's talk." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I really like them. They're so much fun." And they helped me plan a birthday surprise for you. So this goes back into our first date. So since Brad really liked donuts, I was like, I'm gonna get him what was called like a donut cake from the donut shop that we passed by. So they basically make a gigantic fried or baked donut,
Yeah.
and
It's a real donut.
it's
Yeah.
huge. So what I ended up doing was surprising Brad at his office with his donut. What was really funny is I'm texting him the whole way. And I remember like your coworker, she let me in because I think at the time it was still wasn't like 100% open
Yeah.
because other people are having to come into the office and it was still pretty early. But I remember texting and she's at your door and I'm standing there and you're like, just a second. And I'm like, oh, I'm right here.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised. I looked up from my desk and you were standing there with this giant donut, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's awesome!" Like I was super excited. That was really cool, and it was delicious.
Yeah. And it was a Friday, so like I still had to go to work for
Yeah,
myself. But
but
so
that was really nice of you. Yeah,
I surprised him by telling him we were going to go out for dinner at a place called M's that night, also in downtown Omaha.
yeah,
And so went out to dinner. It was really great, nice long conversation. And
yeah.
then
That's when we actually later that night kind of first started talking about like a possible future together and just kind of looking down the road. So it was a very significant night. It was a
yeah,
very good birthday.
for sure. I mean, I think that was right when we 100% were like exclusive, just us.
Hmm.
Like I was like, I'm gonna probably
Oh yeah.
cancel my Match subscription. So in like 3 months, no problem. It's gone. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. Like I'm gonna call this Couch Conversations with Brad. And so, like I mentioned beginning of this podcast episode, that women on Instagram said they wanted to have men's point of views on some topics. So if you have a topic that you would like us to discuss, you can always message me on Instagram at Reinventing the Arena, or you can send me an email at info@reinventingthearena.com. I'll put that in the show notes. But I think what I want to do is like have you on one more time and we can talk about some of the things that we casually brought up today. Maybe some like do's and don'ts of online dating
Yeah.
or first dates. We kind of like
Profile writing.
profile writing. Oh my gosh. I don't necessarily want to be a person that like helps people put up profiles better, but there's always some good tips here and there. So
I've got some feedback.
you always have feedback. Brad, basically, you could be an editor if you wanted to.
Yes, that would make a good profile editor.
Fun thing someday.
Absolutely.
All right. So thank you, honey, for joining me.
You're welcome.
I hope you ladies enjoyed that podcast just as much as we had fun making it. Lots of good segues off of the regular conversation of just how we met and diving in even further of how our relationship evolved within, a few weeks. Now, what I would love from you is to give me feedback. Let me know what you guys thought. Send me a message, or even better yet, leave us a review. So you can go to Apple Podcasts, leave a star rating, and write a review, or you can even just leave a star rating here on Spotify. And as always, if you have any questions or want us to discuss anything specific, like we are planning to do on having more couch conversations, you can message me on Instagram at Reinventing the Arena, or you can email me at info@reinventingthearena.com. All right, ladies, it was really fun to have you join us here for a special podcast episode, and I cannot wait to have you guys back again. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next time.